Hello and welcome to the first of my series in rigging. I took it to Twitter to ask if you guys would be interested in a little rigging tutorial by the one and only Miss Lorylie, and a handful of you said, fuck yeah. The series is going to be more of like a walkthrough rather than an actual tutorial because I'm not very good at explaining things. So I'm just going to be doing it how I would do it and explaining why and how I do it. This is going to be a very chaotic series, so buckle in, Buttercup. We're going for a ride. So the first video we're going to be doing is more just importing and getting everything set up and started. I hope you enjoy and let's get right into it. Before we get started, I wanted to give a huge shout out to one of my best friends, Miss WinterToastie, for letting me use her model for this series. I'll treat you well, I promise. Welcome to the first video in this series. I apologize if my voice sounds like a piece of shit. I'm a little tired. So first of all, obviously you need a model, and to import one, you can go to the top left of your program and click on File, then open and find your PSD from there, or you can open your File Explorer and then drag and drop it into the program, which is what I prefer since it's easier to find that way. So at first glance, my program is most likely going to look different from yours. I just moved things around to make it easier for me to manage. So on the left, I have my deformer tab, which is where we'll be doing all of our rigging. And clicking on one of the layers, you can see that we're able to move it around. To put it back or undo, hit Control Z. Next to the deformer tab, I have my tool details tab, and this is where I can edit all the different brushes. The deformer brush is the one we'll be using the most, and you can see that there is weight as well as brush size and stiffness. For brush size, you can use your mouse to drag left and right inside the box to change the size, or use the hotkey, which is holding B, then dragging up to make it smaller or down to make it bigger. The weight does not change the appearance of the brush, but the percentage represents the sensitivity of the entire brush, I guess. So 40% is my sweet spot. Brush stiffness determines the size of the inner circle. Think of the brush as kind of like a gradient, so the inner circle being opaque and the outer circle is transparent. So the bigger the inner circle is, where it's quote unquote opaque, the harsher the brush is going to be. So next we have the inspector tab, where it shows the name and the art mesh ID of each art piece. The part section is determined by the artist of where or if they put that layer into a folder, which brings us to the right side of my program. The part tab. So what the part tab does is it just shows us everything that is in the model and all of the folders that all the parts are in, honestly. So if you ever lose something within the deformer tab, you can click on it. If you find it in the part tab, it has a search bar at the top, so you can look for whatever you're looking for. My deformer tab gets fucking crazy and I lose shit pretty easily. Things get messy when you've got 800 plus layers to work with. All right, you're not really going to be working with it, but it does show the draw order next to the art layer, and we're not going to talk about draw order right now because that shit is confusing as fuck, and this is supposed to be a beginner series. So if we like this beginner series, then maybe I can do a intermediate series where we go over and talk about things like draw order and animations and conditional physics and stuff like that, blend shapes, whatever. But right now we ain't doing that because fuck no. Fuck no. Anyways, moving on. The clipping ID is a little confusing to explain, so we'll go over that later. Since these tutorials are going to be as beginner friendly as I can muster, we'll be ignoring the rest of the options in this tab and moving on to the parameter tab. This is where all the magic happens and is the most important section of the entire program, to be honest. This is where you'll be spending most of your time. As you can see, there are a bunch of preset parameters that Cubism gives us to rig off of. Angle X, Y, Z are head angles. Then we have the eyes, the brows, mouth, body, breath, and hair. A few of these parameters require use from VBridger, like cheek, brow,
brow X and brow angle. Will not be using them at this time, and totally not because I don't know how to rig them yet. The hair movement parameters I don't use and just create my own, since I'll be using very much more than just 3 parameters for it. So I'm going to delete them, as well as the VBridger specific parameters. I'm now going to organize everything into appropriate folders so everything is easier to find. On the bottom right of the parameters tab, there's a little button that looks like a folder, and I just spam that hole since I'll be needing quite a few. First one I am labeling is head XYZ and not head angles, and you'll see why in the video when we're working on the head angles. And so I don't get lost, I open the folder, then select all my head angles and drag and drop it into the folder we just made and named. I'm gonna go through all the others and speed this bitch up. I'll see you soon. Welcome back, babe. Now that I've given you a micro tour, it's time to shift gears and really start organizing. This is where it gets fucking annoying. Please keep in mind that this is how I choose to organize the models I rig, and will be different from others. Just like the parameters, I'm going to organize the art layers in the deformer tab. If you're using the free version, I don't recommend doing this to the extent that I am, as you will have a limited amount of deformers you can use. Use them wisely. I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. The first layer in the list is part of the crown, which is where folders made by the artist can come in handy if the layer itself was not labeled properly. There is a highlight that looks similar to the ones that belong on the crown, but by clicking on it and looking at the folder it belongs to, it is part of the hair. And I'm currently focusing on the crown, so I'll ignore that piece for now and select all the crown parts. At the top where the brushes are, there is this warped mesh looking thing, and hovering over it, we'll see it says create warp deformer. Go ahead and click on it and you'll get a pop-up. We're only going to focus on the name, and I'm going to rename it crown. Then hit create. It will automatically put everything you had selected into the deformer. On the left of the name, there is an arrow. When it's facing right, it's closed and hides all the layers within it. Facing down is open, showing everything. And by clicking on it, you can close and open the deformer to hide or see what's in there. Since I'm done with the crown, I'll keep it closed for now so I can focus on everything underneath it. Majority of the next layers are labeled as hair, so I'm going to select everything that is labeled as such, and what looks like hair, then confirm it is what I think it is by moving it around. Control Z to put it back. Create another warp deformer and name it hair. This is tedious and boring to watch, so I'll be right back. Now that everything has its home, it's looking much more manageable. To see everything in every warp deformer, there is an arrow right underneath the deformer tab you can click. Hovering over it, it says expand all. I use this when I get lost in the sauce with how many deformers I use. Holy shit, I use too many. All right, so remember when I said clipping IDs are confusing? Well, it's time to start clipping now that we have everything in the right place. So buckle in, Buttercup. Once again, we're going for a ride. I always start from the top and work my way down. So starting back at the crown, we can see that there are highlights poking out. And obviously we don't want that. We want the highlights to shine inside the crown. And that is the best way I can explain clipping, I think. I want the highlight inside the crown, but make it backwards because why the fuck not? That makes sense, right? So instead of putting the highlight into the crown, we're going to put the crown inside the highlight. What the fuck? So finding the crown layer, I'm going to copy the ID of it with Control C, find and select the appropriate highlight. and then paste it with Control V into the clipping ID, then hit enter, and voila, the highlight is now secluded to the crown and will not leave it. Looking over the model, there are other things that need to be clipped, like the snowflakes that I can assume belong to the back of the hair. So again, like the crown and highlight, I want the snowflakes to stay in the hair, but make it backwards. So I'm going to find the back hair, copy the ID, and paste it into the clipping ID of the snowflake layer. The eyebrows, lip skins, and hair shadows are a special case because they aren't poking out of something at the moment, right? But when we go to work on the head angles, they will. So I will take the face base layer and clip it into the brows, lip skins, and hair shadows so they don't poke out when the head turns. While clipping, if there are layers or sections in your way of seeing something, you can click on the deformer it belongs to, and in the inspector tab, turn the opacity to 0%. This is so much easier than going through and hiding every single layer that's within that deformer. So now that I've attempted to explain clipping, because honestly it still makes zero fucking sense to me, I will go through the rest of the model and clip everything else that needs it. Also, a side note, a little thing that took me way too long to find is hiding the boxes for the deformers you've made. Every warp deformer you create will add a gray box, and every rotation deformer, a red circle, will be added onto the model, and it can hinder the ability to see what you're doing while rigging. So at the top of the model view, you have the warp deformer and rotation deformer symbols. You can click on that to hide the gray boxes and red circles. You're welcome. There is also a grid toggle that I personally don't use very often. The only time I find the grid helpful is rigging asymmetrical models, and I need a visual plane for accuracy on both sides, but majority of the time models are going to be symmetrical, so I just keep that bitch off. The drawable toggle buttons I have yet to use, so don't ask me what they mean. I don't know either. The solo toggle button I use a lot while rigging the eyes and the mouth. What it does is highlights the layer you're working on and brings it to the top and dims everything else so you can focus on the layer you're currently working with while still being able to see what the fuck you're doing and where it's going. Oh my god, I almost forgot to mention that to move around your canvas, hold space while using your mouse to drag around and the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, obviously. And speaking of canvas, this is unnecessary but adds a fun little touch. You can change the color of it, and I like to change it to the color scheme of the model I'm currently working on. On the bottom left of the model view, there is a colored square you can click on, and it will bring up a color wheel editor with saturation and opacity options. You can do this with the parameter files as well by right-clicking on them and hovering over label color. You'll get a drop-down menu with preset colors, or you can click on advanced settings to bring up the same color wheel we had earlier to change the canvas, minus the opacity option. Also, don't forget to save. Control S. Reminder that the program does not save for you. There is no autosave on this program, so make sure to hit Control S as often as you can remember. I've made that mistake countless times. Don't be like me. And the first time you do save, you'll get a pop-up to choose where to save your model and the option to rename it. Just make sure to only delete before the .cmo3 when renaming it. I'll be naming mine Winter 2.0 since her name is WinterToastie and this is her second model. And that is it for the first video in this series. We've completed the setup and are ready to start rigging, baby. In the next video, we'll be rigging the eyes, the brows, and the mouth, I think. Maybe not. I think In the next video, we will be working on meshing and rigging the eyes. I hope this was informative and helped you get set up for success. If you have any questions or feel like I missed something, please drop a comment and I will address them in the next video. Thank you so much for chilling and watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.